today I'm going to be reading another fan. It's Manga X Reader. Essentially, I wanted to get to the interesting stuff very quickly. So, another thing, if you hear another thing in the background, don't mind it. So yeah, why don't we get started? Bakugo's point of view. And this is called The Attack of UA Chapter, I don't know. And also, this is by Panda Pride 9. So, while I was sleeping, a loud ringing sound rang throughout the school. There's an attack? But why? I ran outside to see Toga Girl and Listener standing side by side. That girl, she's going to try to take Listener. I growled and clenched my fist. Oh, Listener-chan, here are your friends. That girl smiled as she said that Listener wasn't trying to fight her. So what the heck was she doing? Listener, what the heck? I yelled at her. She looked away. Was she working with this girl? The blonde charged at me with a knife and I quickly dodged. Listener, come on, she's going to hurt you. Pink Cheese yelled at Listener. After staying silent, Listener finally said something. I'm with the league now. My eyes opened so widely. They looked like they could fall out. Everyone stood silent. This girl stopped swinging her knife at me. Listener, what the heck? What's wrong with you? Kirishima yelled at her. I noticed she had cat ears and a tail. She charged at Kirishima, slashing him with her cat claws. Cora's point of view. Oh yeah, and just to let you know, Cora is a girl that's inside her body, so. Listener, let me take control. Or rather, I took control. I know she would hold back. I charged at Bakugo, waving my claws at him, trying to get in a scratch. He dodged every attack, and Toga began to try and hold everyone else off. Asura shot acid at me, causing me to growl and at the pain. Soon, a new move came to help us, holding off Asu, Mina, Haru, Abuyama, Dinky, and Jaro. Toga was handling Midoriya, Kirishima, Sato, and Tokiyami. Todoroki, and I think a few others wasn't here. I stuck fighting to fight Asuro and Bakugo. Why wouldn't I be able to hold all of them off? Some other new move came. Midoriya was able to fight off Toga because Toga was nowhere to be seen. She probably fled. I got distracted by a purple mist that was entering the dorms. Momo began to create gas masks to give everyone. I didn't know what the gas was, and after everyone put their mask on, soon reached me. As I got distracted by the gas, I felt Bakugo pin me against the ground after I breathed in the gas. I felt unconscious. Toga's point of view. I watched as the gas shrinks. Listener-chan. I wanted to help, but I would get hurt too. Gas Boy was too close to the dorms. The gas wasn't supposed to reach us. I sighed and ran off to Dabby. Dabby! The kids got Listener-chan, and Gas Boy was being careless. I scolded at him. He glared at me. He stopped producing his flames and headed off to the dorms to help Listener. What happened? Dabby asked me. Well, why? While we were fighting the kids, the door almost caught me, so I had to run away. The gas reached us, and Listener-chan breathed it in. And then she got picked by Bakugo. I said in a sweet voice, try not to him. He growled and kept walking to the dorms. Listeners I was staring at Bakugo as he was in a different room. I tried to move my hands, but I was handcuffed to something. Don't even try it. What the heck is wrong with you? Trying to join them? They hurt you. You tried to kill me, Bakugo yelled harshly at me. A tear began to roll down your cheek. I didn't try to hurt him. Kura did. I looked around to see it was only Bakugo and me. I tried to say something, but he wouldn't let me. We trusted you. I should have just burned you. I continued to suck uncontrollably. Why? Did Why are you crying? You have no reason to cry. You did this only to blame, he said harshly at me. Even cold words he said to me cut deep into me. Every word broke my heart. I would never try to hurt them. It was all Cora, all of it. I could try harder and harder with every thought. I'm sorry. It just that I finished my sentence and cried harder and harder, making it hard to breathe. What? What are you going to say? You're going to try to defend yourself after what you did? You should just die, Bakugo yelled at me. I finally understood everything. I love Bakugo. I love him. Him saying that I should just die made me want to. I was going to tell him when Toga and Dabi entered the room. Okay, so in this chapter, there's going to be suicidal attempts. So if this triggers you, please leave the video now. Listener's point of view. Right before I was about to confess to Bakugo, Toga and Dabi entered the room. Toga began swinging her knife at Bakugo as Dabi grabbed me after they had me. We quickly left. Bakugo didn't chase after me. He declared that he scuffed. Just go. Be like them, Bakugo shook his head as I got dragged out by Dabi. After leaving UA, I lifted the school and to see purple gas, blue flames, and some parts, but very few buildings actually damaged. I held in my ears and went heading back to the villain hideout. Author's point of view. As the listener left, Bakugo slammed his fist into the wall and lowered his head. God, listener, why do you do this? He closed his eyes. Bakugo was so mad and confused at all this. He headed outside to see that had become of UA. His eyes widened. Meanwhile, while Listener had returned, she was scolded for being careless. Listener walked into her room, head lowered in shame as she sat on her bed and began to cry. Bakugo's point of view. After the Listener left, everything felt different inside me. I don't know what it was, but it was definitely different, and not in a good way. I wanted to rip those guys open and paint the walls red with their blood for hurting Listener. She will be mine. I will get her back, and will be the best heroes. I smirked and looked at the damage the villains had caused. First heroes soon arrived to begin settling the situation. Students were ordered to stay outside the school while teachers and pros escorted for extra students. Deku was the most fazed by this. The nerd looked like he was about to cry. Deku's point of view. I stared at the school as teachers and students flowed out of UA. What caused this? I knew, but I wish I didn't. Did Listener really join the villains? I didn't want to believe it. She was so pure, so set on being a hero. You could see determination in her eyes every time she spoke about heroes. The way she trained, the effort she put into it. She was good friends with Uraka and Asui. Just she was even sort of friends with Kachan. I looked at Asui and Uraka to see them both crying and hugging each other. Then I glanced at Kachan. He was definitely thinking about something. But what? I walked up to Kachan. Kachan, are you are you okay? I asked him quietly. He snapped his head in my direction and smirked. Oh, I'm fine, Deku. I'm fine. Then turning around and walking away from me way. Listener's point of view. After I began to cry, I thought about everything that had happened. Within the last month, everything was going fine. I was doing great, but Kura stepped in. I don't know what to do anymore. Everything is changing. Life isn't the same. Life is horrible. Villains are horrible. Heroes are awful too. So what am I? Do I have a piece of this world? I walked to the bathroom and looked in the mirror at myself. I spit into the mirror and punched the mirror, breaking it into shards. I felt the blood drip down my hands. It didn't hurt. I grabbed a shard of glass and stared at it. One cut, and then, ooh, this will be all over. I wouldn't have to deal with this anymore. But I didn't tell Bakugo how I felt. He deserves to know. I pulled out a piece of paper and pen. I began to write. Bakugo, I know I'm going to die. I know I am. But I deserve to die. I hurt you both physically and emotionally. So I'm going to make it up to you. You said I should die, right? So I'm going to. But I want you to know that it's not your fault. It's only mine. Life isn't fair, and neither is anything else. I tried so hard to be appreciated by heroes, but they didn't do anything to help me. Only you did, and for that I'm grateful. You kept me alive for longer. And before I died, I wanted you to know I love you. I know I can't tell you it now. I can only write it on this meaningless note of paper. Thank you for everything, listener. I finished the note, folded it, grabbed a large piece of glass, and made my way to UA. Okay, so this is the attempt. This is the suicidal attempt. So again, if this trigger you, please leave the video now. As I made my way to UA, my way back to UA, I could hear Corey yelling at me in the back of the head. Listener, no, stop. If you do this, I'll die too. Think of what we could lose. Everything we've worked for. I continue to ignore Corey as I walked in front of UA. I grasped a piece of glass, held it down, and as I began to walk up to Bakugo, I ran the sharp piece against my wrist. I watched the blood slowly pour out. I shuddered at the pain as I began to feel dizzy. I stumbled over to Bakugo and fell in his arms. Listener, Bakugo said as I fell unconscious. Bakugo's point of view. As I stood there, listener stumbled over to me, collapsing on me. I looked down to see blood on her wrist as I began to panic. Listener! I ripped a piece of paper to use a piece of my shirt to use as a bandage. I wrapped a piece of shirt around her wrist to hold her in my arms. In her hand was a piece of paper. I grabbed it and opened it. I began to read it. I kept reading it while holding listener. I finished the letter and I began to cry. I never cried about someone before. I heard listener closer to me. I can't let you die. Not yet. Not now. Not ever. I rested her against my shoulder and looked at her. Nobody else saw her, so it was just me and her. I would never let anyone hurt you again. I poked her face, trying to wake her up. Listen, come on. Don't be dead. You can't die. I pulled rougher and rougher every time. When she didn't react, I began to slap her lightly. Listener, 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 listener. I began to yell her name as her eyes slowly began to open. When her eyes opened, I took the chance to kiss her. Her eyes remained the same as she didn't push away, but she didn't kiss back either. After what felt like an eternity, I finally pulled away and hugged her tightly. She muttered something quietly. I'm sorry. I wasn't angry. I was just relieved that she was alive. Of course, she wasn't okay, but at least she's alive. She fell asleep in my arms again, and I waited for recovery girl. Time skipped to a couple days later. I visit listener in the infirmary again, or nurse's office, or whatever you're supposed to call it. When I entered the room, listener was awake and smiled at me. The past couple of days have had have been rough. I've been out of it, usually asleep, so seeing her awake was nice. I've been thinking that that the whole villain thing isn't for me. Listener said with a weird look on her face. Even since she attempted her suicide, she stutters and pauses in the middle of sentences. I placed a hand on her shoulder. Good, you're more of a hero type. I smiled at her. Apparently, I've become softer when that Deku said listener smiled at me. Shigaraki's going to be mad, she said with a frown. I looked at listener. The dorms were almost finished being fixed. When they are, you're staying in your room. No arguments. She would most likely be expelled, but it wasn't her fault. It was the villains. She smiled at me and drifted off to sleep again. Time skipped to even more days later because, hey, why not? Listener made a full recovery and the dorms were now repaired along with the rest of UA. But she was not allowed to attend class for now. As her punishment, I stayed with her to make sure she was always safe. Nobody ever came to check on her, not even Froggy or Piggy. Not even a good Rita. Listener just laid on her bed, staring at absolutely nothing. I have a list now. She's all mine. But I want more. More than just some kisses. I laid on her bed and asked her, listener, I want to ask you something. I looked at her and faced me. She didn't say anything, but I could tell she was curious. I want to be more than this, but I need your permission. Let me feel every part of you. I asked her. She stared for me for a second. She closed her eyes, hesitantly nodding her head slowly. Yes. After me and Bakugou finished the deed, we fell asleep next to each other and woke up later to Bakugo wasn't there. I got up and searched. Oh yeah, and this is a point of view. Sorry. It wasn't obvious late. It was obviously late. So that's why it was unfriendly. After searching, I went back to his room. There was a note on the bed, one that didn't see before. I walked over to it and unfolded it again. Hey listener, I see you crossed back to those rats, so we took one of them. Bakugo is with us now, and if you come back to us, we won't kill him. Come on and be a dear. Leave the rats. League of Villains. I'm just gonna say this real quick. I silently want to scream my head off right now. I stared at the note in horror. They took Bakugo from me? My Bakugo? Tears filled my eyes as I began to scream. No, 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 no! I screamed repeatedly while sobbing. Everyone here came to the room. Listener, are you okay? No! I screamed repeatedly while sobbing. Everyone here came to the room. Listener, are you okay? I heard Kirishima knock on the door. I fell to my knees and began to cry. The door opened to see Class 1A. Uraka came over to me to place her hand on my shoulder. Listener, what happened? Uraka is still afraid of me? Uraka was still afraid of me, but mostly concerned. I jumped to Nana and quietly sobbed. Todoroki got in and read it, and then sighed. Well, we have to leave this to the pros. Slowly. I looked up quickly. What? He's gone. We can't just leave him. We have to get him. He won't make it. He need us. Todoroki stared at me. No. He will have to wait. The anger built up inside me, and I tried to keep it, but failed. I became half cat, half human. I jumped up at him. You bastard! I hope you brought it. Ugh! I clawed at his face, leaving a small cut on his cheek. Kamara and Kirishima pulled me off of him. I began to cry again. Tori didn't say anything. He just stared at me in shock. Then rubbed his cheek. Listener, what's wrong with you? Kirishima asked. Me? Everything is it's falling apart. I wiped my eyes and tried to stop crying. Kirishima pulled me into a hug. I began to cry on his shoulders. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't know what to do. Everything going against me. Time, the villains, the heroes, and even life. I felt like I was losing everything. Well, we'll get him back. Don't worry, Kirishima kept hugging me. Excuse me, as your class rep, I must interrupt. I must stop you, as Todoroki is correct. This is a job to leave to the pros, Ida interrupted. I wanted to slap him, but I just kept hugging Kirishima. Right now, he's the only person who would comfort me. Kirishima tried pulling away, but I just hugged tighter. He's all I have right now. I just need someone to hold. Kirishima stopped pulling away and let me hug him as I thought how to get Bakugo back. Kirishima's point of view. And this chapter is called The Lost. While listener was hugging me, I noticed her eye patch. When did she get it? I tried to remember. I don't remember seeing her wearing it. Maybe she had. I looked at it in confusion. I reached up my hand to take it off, but listener grabbed my wrist harshly. I looked at her in shock. Don't do that. She let go of my wrist and looked down, and I stopped hugging her and stood up. Do you have to plan to get him back? I didn't mean to upset her. She just looked like a little sister to me. No, I don't. Listener looked down. Fine. We'll go look for him tomorrow morning. I stated abruptly and walked away from to my room. Bakugo's point of view. I sat chained to my chair. The villain had kidnapped me again. These, when I get free, I'm going to blow all of them to shreds. That hand guy walked in the room. Seems like our little doll hasn't came to save you yet. I must say, she really cares about you, Tomer said. I growled at him as he walked to me. He placed a hand on my shoulder as I felt burning pain. I growled at the pain. He was using his cord to decay me. Or in other words, torture me. You piece of I'm going to kill you. I yelled at him. He just scratched his neck and left the room. Soon after that, Tofu girl came. Hello, how are you doing today? I brought you some bandages for your shoulder. She tried saying that cutely. I scoffed at her. Why do you care? She made pouty lips and sighed. I'm not heartless, you know. I can care when I want to. And your blood looks nice. I wouldn't want to taste it. She walked up to me with a tube looking thing. She put the tube where the blood where it fell into the tube. I growled at her. After she finished collecting the blood, she wrapped my shoulder up and happily walked out of the room. I need to get out of here. These guys are like psychopathic. I struggled to get out of my chair, then soon fell asleep. Listener's point of view. After Kirishima had left the room, everyone else looked at me with a look of sorrow, then left as well. I walked back to Bakugo's room because I didn't feel comfortable on my own. When I reached the room, I opened the door hesitantly. As soon as seeing Bakugo's room, I began to sob again. They could have been doing anything to him, and I couldn't help him. Yet everything was just getting worse. I stopped crying and walked to the chair to sit down. I grabbed the remote and gently pressed down the power button because the TV's default mode was the main news channel. That's what you would see as soon as you turned it on. As I was about to change the channel, something was interesting, but stopped after what I heard. Police reports say a middle-aged woman body had been found at an apartment near A. The woman looked like she was about 30. Everything about her was blurred as the TV showed an ambulance pulling out their beds and putting the body. But most part was the ambulance came out of my house. Everything froze. After I saw the tears pour out again, she's gone. My mom, the woman who birthed me and raised me, is gone. The image kept reappearing in my head. Apparently, my cries had gotten louder because Kirishima bust down the door suddenly. Listenette? Oh my god. Listener? His voice was so fuzzy and muffled. I could barely hear him. I felt my vision go blurry as I collapsed into Kirishima's arms. Bakugo's arms. Kirishima arms. Time skipped. I woke up to Bakugo standing over me and wearing a brush on his face. He sighed in relief and then closed his eyes. Listener, what happened? I realized I was in his room. probably because I didn't blink a lot. As my eyes felt extremely dry soon, everything came back to me. My mom, my breathing became heavier, but I didn't let myself cry. Mom, Mom, she's gone, I said between heavy breaths. I hugged Hiroshima as tight as possible. His eyes widened as he looked down. I, I'm sorry, listener. He had me back. Everything is falling apart. Sorrow. Listener's point of view. I cried into Kirishima's arms, burying my face against his chest. I felt awful. I was beginning to become extremely depressed. I never got to spend good time with my mom, but still meant the world to me. Listener, we have class tomorrow. You should get some sleep. If you want to, you can stay in my room. Kirishima asked sweetly. I nodded very slowly as I picked up. He picked me up bridal style. Get me out of Bakugo's room. I closed my eyes to keep myself from crying. When I opened them again in Kirishima's room, he placed me gently on the bed and ruffled my hair. Everything will be fine. It'll be okay. We'll get Bakugo back, and I'll make sure you're okay. His words were caring, but I didn't convince me. Listener, come on, let's go. Rip bastard's throats out. We both know who killed your mom. So let's get revenge. You heard Cora in the back of your head. I tried to ignore her. I laid down, closing my eyes. I soon realized this was a mistake, as I lost my consciousness as Cora took over. Cora's point of view. Finally, I took control. Now I can make those guys, those bastards, suffer for making listener feel this way. She's my whole world, and I would be well if I let them take her away from me. Listener's red broom friend came back to the room. I stood up and began to walk out of the room. Listener, where are you going? You need to rest. Broom said to me, listen, I'm not going to stay here and let listener suffer, I said harshly to him, and left the room. He grabbed my wrist. Out of shot, I slapped him. I didn't want to actually hurt him. Oh, I didn't. Sorry. I ran out of the room embarrassed. My face was red, and I didn't want him to actually be injured. I sounded like I hit him really hard. That's why I was so worried. Time skip. I finally made it to the villain's hideout. Listener might not have known where it was, but I did. I looked around the window. I looked around for the window that Bakugo used to save listener. I eventually found it and began to climb up the vine, growing next to it. I reached the window and looked in it. And when I was sure it was there, I opened the window so it could come in. Now that what cat should I be? Come on, Core, think. A lion, they are extremely deadly. But think about a cheetah if I need to escape. I need something sneaky. Then it could be a panther. Even though it's a cat, I can use it most. It's good for sneaking and attacking. I closed my eyes and began to picture Panther. When I opened, I was transformed. I began to sneak around to find the villains who did this to listener. I'm going to bring absolute heck down on them. Then I heard someone call listener's name. Listener? It was Bakugo, the blonde broom. I snapped my head in his direction, then moved slowly towards him. I placed my paw near his mouth, listening to him to be quiet. He understood and nodded. I began to search around again. Then I heard, "Oh, come on, handyman, please." It was a yandere girl. I growled and burst into the room. "Cora, no! You're just gonna make things worse. Listener is trying to stop me," I scuffed and ran straight to Sugar. Suddenly, I was back at the doorway. It was a rap gate. God damn it. LOL, listener, come to join us. Why? Guess not. Shigaraki said as he scratched his neck. I growled at him and he just chuckled. What is he laughing about? Then it hit me. Toga disappeared. God. Then I felt something enter my back, a needle of some sort. It wasn't the same that it used to be. The torture. I used to rip her throat out, but I was too dizzy. I studied to try and leave, but the farther I got was Bakugo. Listener, Bakugo called up to me. I laid my head in his laps, falling unconscious. That's all. Okay, so this is called the assault. Okay, guys, so so this is me posting 10 minutes later after this happened, but I was reading the story and my computer cut off suddenly. It's dead. I didn't know. It wasn't giving me a warning. So I'm gonna have to continue with this in a few minutes or hour, or just finish this later. I will be posting another video of Bakugo X Listener in a minute, or like in a few, like an hour or so. But I think I got my video picked out. So yeah, just wait for that video to come out. I don't even think the video's gonna go up before that video. But if you see this video before that video, please just support me because this is haywire. God. Hope you have a wonderful day. And I'm gonna call you my bumblebees because I like that. So bye, my little bumblebees. Bye. Oh yeah, and I just wanted to say this is me after filming this. Sorry for the background noise you was hearing in the re-record of this. That was my mom calling me and my door noises in bed. So bye, my bumblebees.